Welcome back to the Deep Dive. I'm your host, and today we are going to ruffle some feathers. I'm just going to put that warning label on the box right now.
I think that's fair.
Usually we tackle topics that, make you smarter or maybe more efficient. Sometimes we just give you a fun fact to drop at a dinner party. But
Today's different.
today we are looking at a stack of research that is designed, and I think quite intentionally, to make you uncomfortable.
It's a bit of a mirror, isn't it? And not the flattering kind with the nice lighting you find in a department store.
No.
It's the harsh, fluorescent bathroom mirror that shows every single pore.
Exactly. We are diving into the world of parenting, but not the, top 10 hacks to get your toddler to eat broccoli kind of parenting.
Not at all.
We are going deep into the philosophy, the ethics, and frankly, the terrifying spiritual weight of raising a human being. And we're doing it by looking at a lecture that analyzes a classical text from the 12th century.
Right. And just to frame that for a second, we're talking about a text that is nearly 900 years old.
900.
And it's focused on what the text calls the quarter of destructive vices. Specifically, the vices related to how we raise our children.
And before we get into the really heavy stuff, I think we need to set the scene. Because the source material, it opens with a scenario that I think every single person listening has witnessed or participated in, probably within the last month.
The venting session.
The venting session. You know the drill. You're at a dinner party, or maybe you're standing on the sidelines of a soccer game, clutching a lukewarm coffee. The parents circle up, and inevitably, the conversation turns into this grievance list.
Oh, absolutely. My son is so entitled.
My daughter won't look up from her phone.
They have no respect for authority.
I asked them to do one simple chore, and it's World War III in my house.
It's the universal bonding ritual of modern parenthood. We all do it. We commiserate over how difficult these little people are.
We do.
Yeah.
And we frame it in a very specific way. We frame it as, we are the victims. We are the benevolent providers, working our fingers to the bone. And there are these inexplicable tyrants who just invaded our house.
That is the standard narrative. It's an external locus of control. The world is ruining my kid, or it's just this generation.
But here is the hook. And this is where the source material comes in swinging right from the very beginning. The speaker in this lecture suggests that if we were to take this case to some kind of cosmic court of law, the parents wouldn't be the plaintiffs. They would be the defendants.
That's the twist.
Yeah.
The source argues that today, in the 21st century, it is actually the children who have a valid complaint against their parents.
A valid lawsuit.
A valid lawsuit, yes. The argument is that while parents feel they are succeeding because they're ticking all the boxes of the material world.
What do you mean by that, the material world?
They're providing the iPad, the private education, the designer sneakers, the safe neighborhood. They're providing all the stuff.
The hardware.
Exactly. They are providing the hardware, but they are installing a corrupted operating system. And because of that, the argument goes, the child is suffering. The parent is failing at what the text calls the trust.
That is a heavy way to start. You think you're the victim, but you're actually the perpetrator.
It creates a core tension that we're going to explore for the next hour or so. The tension between success, as the world defines it, comfort, status, money, and success, as this ancient text defines it, which is character, discipline, and ultimately salvation.
So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack this quarter of destructive vices. We're going to look at the child as a trust. We're going to look at the absolute trap of what I'm calling luxury parenting.
A very dangerous trap.
We're going to discuss the battlefield of school selection, and we're going to run through a litmus test involving exams versus prayer that, honestly, it made me sweat a little while I was reading it.
It's a comprehensive audit of the family home, and it starts with a metaphor, a very powerful one.
Let's jump into that then. Part 1. The child as a trust. The source uses a very specific image to describe a child's heart, the naive jewel.
Yes. The naive jewel.
Yeah.
Now, we need to be careful with the language here, because in modern English, when we say someone is naive, it's usually an insult. It means they're gullible or stupid or they lack experience.
Oh, don't be so naive. It's dismissive. It's a put down.
Exactly. But in the context of this 12th century ethics text, naive means something else entirely. It means simple. It means pure. It means unmixed and unblemished.
It's like a raw material.
Think of a gemstone that has just been pulled from the earth. It hasn't been cut yet, it hasn't been polished, and crucially, it hasn't been engraved. It's pristine.
It is raw potential.
Precisely. The text says the heart of the child is a naive jewel. It is completely empty and capable of accepting any inscription. It is a blank slate,
Hmm.
but a very, very valuable blank slate.
And the scary part of a blank slate, I guess, is that it doesn't choose what gets written on it.
That's the mechanism. The jewel doesn't have agency yet.
Yeah.
It yields to the carver. If you take a chisel and you carve a beautiful verse of wisdom or a geometric pattern of discipline into it, the jewel holds that shape forever.
Okay.
But if you take a nail and you just scratch a chaotic, ugly, violent mess onto its surface, the jewel holds that too.
And the parent is the one holding the chisel.
The parent, the educator, the environment, they are the carvers.
Mhm.
But the source frames this as a trust. And we should think about that word. In legal terms or ethical terms, a trust is something valuable given to you that does not belong to you.
Right, you're just a custodian.
You're a custodian, and you must return it in good condition.
So the child doesn't belong to the parent in that sense.
Not in the absolute sense, no. The child is a loan from the creator. And here is the stake, the ROI, if you want to use business terms, which is a bit crass, but it makes the point. The source says that if good is inscribed on this jewel, the child grows up with that goodness. And the parents and the teachers, anyone who helped hold that chisel, they share in the spiritual reward of every good thing that child does for their entire life.
It's like a kind of spiritual residual income?
Spiritual royalties. It compounds. If you teach your child to be honest and 50 years later that child returns a lost wallet with $1,000 in it, you get a piece of that credit, even if you're in your grave.
But the flip side, the downside.
The flip side is the terrified silence in the room. If evil is inscribed, or, and this is the part that really applies to modern parents, I think, if the jewel is simply neglected.
Neglected how? I mean, most parents don't think they're neglecting their kids.
Neglected in the sense that it's left to gather dust. If it's treated like an animal in a barn, just fed, watered, and then let loose to graze without any direction or discipline, then the child becomes corrupt. The child becomes lost. And the burden, the spiritual debt of that corruption, is hung around the neck of the guardian.
Hung around the neck of the guardian. That is such a visceral image. It really, really pushes back against the idea of, well, I kept them alive, I paid for the braces, I got them through school, I did my job.
The source is saying no. That was just the baseline. You were the shepherd. And we really need to redefine what shepherd means in this context.
Because usually when we hear shepherd or leader or head of household, we think of power. We think, I'm the boss, what I say goes. It's a CEO mindset.
Correct. But the text corrects this view. The source quotes a famous saying that every person is a shepherd and is responsible for their flock. But in the original context, responsible doesn't just mean in charge of.
What does it mean then?
It means answerable for. It implies an interrogation is coming.
An interrogation. By who?
The speaker uses that specific framing. The creator will interrogate the shepherd about the condition of the flock. I gave you a jewel, you have returned a rock, what happened? The questions are not about, did you get them into the Ivy League? Or did they make the varsity team? The question is, what is the state of their soul?
That distinction is just. It's crucial. It shifts the entire metric of success. And if we accept that we are the shepherds and we are liable for the condition of the sheep, then we absolutely have to talk about the pasture we put them in. Which brings us to part 2, the environment.
What the source calls the school choice trap.
This section really stood out to me because it feels like the most modern conflict in the whole text. The source brings up this complaint parents have about bad company.
We hear it all the time.
My kid has bad friends, peer pressure is ruining my child. We treat bad company like it's a weather event, like a tornado that just touched down in our living room and we had no control over it.
And the speaker's rebuttal in the source is absolutely withering. He essentially looks at the parent and says, stop lying to yourself. The tornado didn't break in. You opened the door. In fact, you paid the tornado to come inside.
Wow. He's talking specifically about the choice of schools here.
Yes. And keeping in mind our rule for this deep dive, the concepts here are universal, regardless of specific traditions. He is critiquing parents, specifically religious or ethically minded parents, who choose to send their children to prestigious, international, or foreign-style schools.
Okay, but I want to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Please.
Because I know what the listeners are thinking. I want my kid to succeed in this world. I want them to speak fluent English. I want them to have the network that comes with a fancy school. If I send them to a small, underfunded religious school, am I not limiting their economic future?
The source makes it sound like a crime, but isn't it just a strategic investment in their future?
That is the exact defense the speaker addresses. He acknowledges that logic. He understands it completely. He knows you want the prestige and the fluency, but he asks you to audit the entire package you're buying.
What's the hidden cost?
Yeah.
What's in the fine print? The cost is the inscription on the jewel. The speaker argues that when you choose that environment, you aren't just buying grammar lessons and networking opportunities. You are immersing your child in a culture that often lacks any religious or strong moral barriers.
The source mentions things like boys and girls mixing freely, a dating culture being normalized, and a complete absence of ritual or spiritual practice.
Right. It's an environment where the material world is the only thing that matters. There's no prayer time. There's no discussion of the creator or ultimate purpose. Foreign customs, which might completely contradict the family's core values, are normalized and even celebrated. And the speaker points out, you're taking a 4-year-old.
The 4-year-old argument. I love this part.
Yes, you take a 4-year-old, this child has no agency. They don't know what a career network is. They can't even spell it. You place them in this system for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 12 years.
It's their whole world, basically.
It is their entire formative world. And then what happens? When the child turns 15 and they want to date, or they want to dress a certain way, or they think prayer is weird and backward because none of their cool, successful friends do it,
Yeah.
the parent acts shocked. The parent screams, "We didn't raise you this way."
But they did. Or the school they chose did.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You outsource the inscription to a system that does not share your values. You hired a carver who worships a different god. The speaker uses a fantastic analogy here. He says it is like a father who throws his child into the middle of the ocean.
And then stands on the shore yelling, "Don't get wet."
Beware, beware of getting wet. It's absurd. It's a physical impossibility. You cannot place a sponge in a bucket of vinegar and expect it to stay dry. It will absorb the vinegar. That's what sponges do.
That really exposes the cognitive dissonance we have. We want the worldly output of the secular school, but we want the spiritual output of a religious upbringing. And we think we can just hack it. Like, I'll send them to the fancy school by day, and we'll just have a stern talk about values over dinner for 10 minutes.
And the source says, you lose that math equation every single time. Immersion beats instruction, always. The trust of the child means you are responsible for the air they breathe. If the air is toxic to their faith and you willingly put them there, the illness is your fault.
That is a very bitter pill to swallow. You paid tuition for the bad company.
It is. But it leads us directly to the next destructive vice, which is arguably even more common in affluent societies today, the lifestyle.
Part 3, the danger of luxury. The source has a section that is basically a prohibition on soft living. Do not accustom the child to luxury.
This is a central tenet of the text, and it flies directly in the face of modern aspiration.
Totally. I mean, why do we work so hard? We work to give our kids a better life than we had. We want them to have the nice clothes, the newest phone, the comfort. We want to smooth the road for them, remove the obstacles.
And that, according to the source, is the trap. We confuse good providing with good parenting. The speaker describes this as creating a bubble, a false reality for the child.
He mentions some specific examples that just blew my mind. He talked about parents giving credit cards to 7-year-olds.
7-year-olds. Children who can barely read are given the power to purchase whatever they desire, whenever they desire it. The speaker argues this trains the child for a world that does not exist, a world where desire is instantly met with fulfillment, with zero effort, zero friction.
It's the Amazon Primification of the soul. You want it, you get it in 2 hours.
It is, and the psychological cost is softness. The source argues this upbringing creates mushy children. They have no skeletal structure to their character, no backbone.
So what happens when they hit the first real bump in the road?
They collapse. Because they have never had to hear the word no or wait for something or endure a little bit of heat or hunger or boredom, they lack resilience. The first time a teacher is mean to them or the air conditioning breaks or they don't get the grade they want, they fall apart.
They don't have the tools to cope. But there's a longer-term danger the speaker warns about, right? It's not just about them being bratty kids who can't handle minor discomfort. It's about them being miserable adults.
This is the core of it. He calls it the poverty of expectation. The speaker warns, what happens when that child grows up? They are now addicted to a standard of living, a level of luxury that they did not earn and, in all likelihood, cannot maintain on their own.
Because mom and dad's wallet isn't there forever, or it shouldn't be.
Exactly. So they leave the nest, and suddenly they are living in a regular apartment, driving a used car, eating basic food. Now, to a normal person, that's just life. But to the child raised in the bubble, that feels like abject poverty.
It feels like a downgrade. It feels like failure.
And this leads to deep depression. It leads to resentment toward the parents for not setting them up for life, for giving them a taste of something they couldn't keep. Or even worse, it leads to resentment toward the creator. Why are you punishing me with this struggle, when in reality it's just a normal life?
That is profound. By giving them everything, you've actually narrowed their ability to be happy. You've made their target for satisfaction so small and so expensive that they'll rarely ever hit it.
Precisely. The speaker laments that parents are failing to teach the skill of survival.
And he doesn't mean starting a fire with 2 sticks in the woods.
No, no. He means the emotional skill of living on less, the ability to be content with a simple meal, the ability to sleep on a hard mattress and not complain, the ability to interact with different social classes, not just the elite. If you only raise a child in the bubble of high society, you have crippled their adaptability. And in a volatile world like ours, adaptability is the ultimate survival trait.
It's about being anti-fragile. But by padding all the walls, you're actually making your kid incredibly fragile.
Yes. The prohibition of soft living isn't because the source hates nice things. It's because the source loves the child too much to let them be weak.
So we've failed on the environment, we're failing by spoiling them with luxury, and now we get to the part that I think is the real emotional climax of the lecture, the exam versus prayer test.
This is the litmus test. This is that harsh fluorescent mirror I mentioned at the beginning.
Set the scene for us, lay it out.
So the speaker addresses a parent who comes to him, and he says this happens all the time, complaining about their teenager. The parent says, I try to wake my son for the dawn prayer. I really do. I knock on the door. I tell him it's time. But he just groans and rolls over. He won't get up. I've done my duty. What more can I do?
It's the classic, I did my best defense. It's passive. It's a shrug. It absolves them of responsibility.
Right. And the speaker challenges this attitude aggressively. He doesn't offer a gentle tip like, oh, try a new alarm clock. He hits them with an analogy that just destroys that defense.
A high school exam analogy.
Yes. He asks the parent, imagine your son has the most critical final exam of his high school career, the one that determines if he gets into the college of his dreams. Or, another example, imagine he has a flight to catch for a dream vacation you've paid thousands for, and it's at 5 a.m.
Okay, I'm with you.
You go to wake him up, he groans, he rolls over, he says, I'm too tired, leave me alone.
Do you just sigh and say, oh, well, I tried, and go back to bed?
No way. Absolutely not. The energy in that house would be nuclear. It would be DEFCON 1.
Describe it. What do you do? What does that parent do?
You flip on every light in the room, you rip the duvet off the bed, you splash cold water on his face, you are screaming, get up! This is your future, you are not missing this. You would literally drag him by his ankles to the car if you had to. You would drive him there in his pajamas. There is zero chance he misses that exam.
There is a panic, a desperation, an absolute refusal to accept failure. Why?
Because we believe the consequences are real and severe. We believe that missing that exam is a catastrophe for his future. You value the worldly outcome, the diploma. The speaker argues that your lack of intensity regarding the prayer shows that the parent, in their heart of hearts, values worldly success more than spiritual salvation.
That is, ouch. That is a direct hit.
The goal of parenting, according to this 900-year-old source, is saving the child from the fire, from spiritual ruin. If you are frantic about the college degree but passive and resigned about the prayer, you have revealed your true hierarchy of values. You are telling your child, without using words, math class is mandatory, connection with the Creator is optional.
And kids are smart. They're not stupid. They detect the signal amidst all the noise. They see what makes dad sweat. They see what makes mom panic.
Exactly. Action speaks so much louder than sermons. If you want your child to value the spiritual, you have to treat it with the same urgency. No, the source would say more urgency than the material.
The speaker goes deeper into this practical problem, though. He does a kind of root cause analysis. He asks, why can't the kid wake up? Is it just teenage biology?
He says, no, it's not just that. He points the finger at a specific culprit in the modern home, the router.
The internet router.
He suggests that the root cause is systemic chaos in the home. The child is up all night on the internet, on the tablet, watching movies, playing games, chatting with friends. So of course they can't wake up at dawn. They're physically exhausted. Their sleep cycle is destroyed.
And the solution offered is brutally simple. It's the router rule.
It's a strict household rule. The internet router is removed or unplugged at bedtime. No exceptions. The speaker calls the router the third partner, in the marriage and the family.
The third partner. That is such a creepy but completely accurate image.
It is. It's an intruder, a portal to the entire world that sits in your hallway,
Yeah.
blinking.
Yeah.
And he says for the house to function, for the family to connect, the third partner needs to be kicked out at night.
I love that. Get out of my house. We're sleeping now.
He argues that the household culture must be built around venerating the rituals. If the house is chaotic, he uses the term loose, where everyone sleeps when they want, screens are on 247, and there is no rhythm, then spiritual discipline is impossible. You cannot have spiritual discipline in a physically chaotic environment.
That connects right back to the shepherd concept. The shepherd sets the boundaries of the pasture. If there are no fences, the sheep wander off and get eaten by wolves. The router is the broken fence.
Precisely. And to illustrate the gravity of this, how much the early generation valued these rituals compared to us, the speaker retells a historical anecdote about a famous general named Annas.
The conquering general. This story really puts our modern struggles into perspective.
It does. So General Annas was leading his army to conquer a major fortified city. This was a massive military campaign, the culmination of a long siege. It was brutal. It lasted a long time. Finally, the army broke through the gates of the city.
And this wasn't a video game. This was bloody hand-to-hand combat.
Absolute chaos. Swords, dust, noise, adrenaline. The battle for the city was so intense that the army missed the proper time for the dawn prayer. They literally couldn't stop fighting to pray. They didn't get to it until the sun had fully risen and the victory was secured.
So they won the battle, though. They took the city.
They won a massive victory, a huge strategic triumph. It was a career-defining moment for this general. But the source says that for years afterward, for the rest of his life, whenever General Annas remembered the battle for that city, he would weep.
He would cry over one of his greatest victories. Why?
He would cry. He would say, "What is that city to me? The victory was not worth missing the prayer."
Wow. Just wow.
Think about that mindset for a second. He conquered a city, a massive worldly achievement, but he felt like he had lost because he missed his appointment with his creator.
And contrast that with the modern parent. We celebrate the victory, the A on the test, the sports trophy, the college acceptance letter, even if it means sacrificing the spiritual duties. We say, oh, he missed the prayer, but look, he got into a great school.
General Annas viewed the worldly victory as a tragedy because it cost him a spiritual moment. That is the level of veneration the source is pointing toward. It's not about balancing the two, it's about knowing deep in your bones which one carries the ultimate weight.
That puts things in a wildly different perspective. It really is all about priority.
And that priority starts from day one. Moving on, the source also dives into early childhood development. And this part is interesting because it looks at who else is holding the chisel. We're talking about caregivers, nannies, or in the ancient context, wet nurses.
Right. Today we'd call them nannies or daycare providers, people we entrust our children to.
The ancient text advises extreme caution here. The belief is that spiritual corruption can be transmitted from the caregiver to the child.
Transmitted how? Like a virus. That sounds a little superstitious.
The text talks about forbidden milk. Now, this is both metaphorical and literal. Figuratively, if the caregiver is paid with money from bad sources, like corruption or theft or interest, that negative energy enters the child through the food they eat. But more literally, and more relevant to us, it's about the character of the caregiver.
The osmosis of personality.
Exactly. If the person feeding, holding, and raising your child for 8 hours a day has poor values, if they lie, if they use foul language, if they're immodest in their dress or behavior, if they have a bad temper, the child absorbs that. It becomes their normal.
It goes right back to the blank slate. The nanny is carving the jewel while you're at work.
Yes. The speaker applies this directly to the modern nanny industry. We often hire based on price or availability, who is the cheapest, who can start on Monday, but we rarely, if ever, do a spiritual background check. If you hire someone with a corrupt character, you are feeding that corruption directly into your child's soul.
And speaking of character development, there's a specific milestone the source says to watch for. Usually, parents look for milestones like first step or first word, but the source looks for the first shame.
Yes. The text states that when a child first shows signs of shyness or shame, maybe they hide behind the parent's leg when a stranger says hello, or they cover themselves when getting changed, it is the specific sign of the light of reason turning on.
That's a beautiful phrase, the light of reason. Why is shame linked to reason? I don't think we see it that way today.
Because animals don't feel shame. Animals just eat and exist without self-consciousness. When a child feels shy, it means they are developing self-awareness. They understand social nuance. They understand their own dignity. They realize they're being observed and judged.
So it's actually a sign of higher intelligence kicking in.
It is the dawn of intelligence. Yeah. And the source says parents should seize this moment. This is the golden window to teach spiritual modesty and boundaries.
But the speaker argues that modern parents often do the exact opposite. We try to kill it, we stamp it out.
We do. We treat shyness like a defect. We say, oh, don't be shy. We force the child to perform for relatives. Go give Uncle Bob a hug, even if you don't want to. Kiss your auntie. Come on, dance in the middle of the circle for everyone.
We think we're teaching them social skills. We think we're making them confident and outgoing.
But the source argues we are breaking their natural defense mechanism against indecency. We are desensitizing them. If you consistently force a child to suppress their natural modesty to please adults, you are paving the way for them to ignore their boundaries later in life. You are teaching them that their internal alarm system is wrong and that the approval of others is more important than their own comfort.
That is a massive connection. By forcing them to hug a distant relative now, we're teaching them that their feeling of discomfort doesn't matter.
Correct. And this extends to the dress code. The speaker emphasizes accustoming children, specifically girls. But the principle applies to boys, too, to modest dress from an early age.
Now, I can hear the pushback on that one. Let kids be kids. Why does a 6-year-old need to dress modestly? What's the point?
The source isn't saying the 6-year-old is sinful. That's not the point at all. The source is talking about habit formation. If a girl dresses in, very short or revealing clothes until she is 12 or 13, and then suddenly puberty hits, and the parents say, okay, now you're a woman, you have to cover up. How does that feel to her?
It feels like a punishment. It feels like a restriction being imposed on her from the outside. Her freedom is being taken away.
Exactly. It feels like a jail sentence. But if she grows up with modesty as her baseline, as her normal, it's just her identity. It doesn't feel like a sudden, jarring change. It's part of who she is.
It's about identity formation. You normalize the values you want them to hold as adults, so it's not a fight later on.
Yes, it becomes their comfort zone.
Okay, we have one final major section to cover, and this one steps back from the kids entirely. It looks at the parents before they even became parents. It's about what the source calls the myth of marital rehabilitation.
Or what we might call the I can fix him syndrome, the I can fix her trope.
We've all seen this movie. A religious, disciplined, serious person falls for someone who is, let's say, a free spirit, a party animal, someone who just doesn't share their core values at all. And they think, my love is so strong it will change them.
I will guide them. I will be a good influence. I will fix them. The speaker advises strongly, strictly against this. He says, do not marry someone hoping to change their fundamental character.
What's the logic behind that? Is he just being pessimistic about love?
He describes what I call the physics of faith. It's a very simple and, I think, undeniable principle. He says, the lower pulls down, the higher.
It's like gravity.
It's exactly like gravity. Gravity always works downwards. It is simply easier, less effort to be pulled toward desires, fun, laziness, and worldly pleasure than it is to be pulled toward discipline, prayer, and difficulty.
So in a spiritual tug-of-war, the person pulling downhill always has the advantage.
Always. He says that in his decades of experience counseling couples, it is almost always the more religious partner who compromises their values to keep the peace in the marriage. They start skipping prayers to avoid a fight. They start going to places they shouldn't just to maintain the relationship. The rehabilitation project rarely, if ever, succeeds.
And this argument then extends to the next generation, to the kids.
That's the clincher. Even if you think you are strong enough to resist being pulled down, what about the children? If you have one parent who venerates the ritual and one parent who mocks it or ignores it, the child is caught in the middle. They're completely confused.
They get mixed signals constantly.
They get chaos. The home becomes a battleground of values, either overt or passive-aggressive. The speaker warns that this leads to a confused generation with no solid ground to stand on.
So the advice is, seek distinct compatibility from the very beginning.
Do not compromise on foundational values at the start, hoping for a miracle later. The trust of the child begins with the selection of the co-shepherd. You cannot build a secure fortress if half of your foundation is sand.
That connects everything right back together. You can't be a good shepherd if you willingly invite a wolf or even just a very careless sheep to help you run the flock.
That's a very valid way to put it.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've gone from the jewel in a child's heart to the router in the hallway. We've talked about the wetness of the ocean and the tears of General Annis. If we had to synthesize this entire deep dive, what is the so what here? What is the definition of success according to this source?
The definition of success is radically shifted from success in the material world to salvation in the hereafter. The source argues that true parenting, the successful fulfillment of the trust, is about saving the child from the ultimate punishment and guiding them toward the ultimate reward. It's not about their resume, it's about their record with the Creator.
It's about playing the long game, the eternal game.
Exactly. It's about realizing that comfort, that bubble of luxury we work so hard to create, is often the enemy of character. And that you, as the parent, are the architect of the environment. You can't outsource the blame to society or peer pressure. You are the shepherd, and the interrogation is coming.
It's a call to take radical responsibility for the souls you've been entrusted with.
Radical responsibility, yes.
I want to leave our listeners with a final thought, something to mull over as they look at their own homes tonight. We talked about the rooter being the third partner in the family.
The intruder in the hallway.
Tonight, when you're walking down your hallway, maybe after the kids are in bed, and you see those little green and orange lights blinking in the dark, just pause. Look at that plastic box. And ask yourself a very simple question.
Ask yourself, is this box running my house? Or am I?
And maybe, just maybe, reach down and pull the plug. See what happens to the silence in your home.
Save the jewel.
Powerful stuff. Thank you for guiding us through this
Right.
difficult but necessary conversation.
My pleasure. It's a heavy topic, but an essential one.
And thank you to our listeners for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, take care of your flock.